Every year, over 25 million travelers file insurance claims. But did you know war, riot, or even political unrest often voids them instantly? Some tourists stranded in 2023 Ukraine got $0 back. Why do policies quietly protect companies, not travelers? We'll uncover real stories that will leave you stunned. Why does your travel insurance refuse you when war breaks out? Military conflict starts. Bombs fall. Suddenly your free trip becomes a legal battlefield. You discover your insurance has quietly backed out. Almost every standard travel insurance policy hides a war exclusion clause. According to Investopedia, that clause bars coverage for acts of war, invasions, insurrections, rebellions, and the consequences of those events. Insurance companies claim they can't price risks when entire regions turn hostile overnight. Look at real life. A traveler canceled his October 2023 trip to Tel Aviv as conflict escalated. He filed a claim for flight and hotel costs. The insurer denied it based on war exclusion. AIG Australia allegedly refused his claim in August 2024. He thought he'd bought protection, but those clauses were already in force, invisible until needed. Here's how the logic works. War is unpredictable, large-scale, systemic. Underwriting war means absorbing losses that could bankrupt insurers, so they carve war risks out entirely. A legal piece by Hunton warns that any claim with potential link to wartime events may trigger that exclusion, even if your loss seems tangential. The paradox? Terrorism sometimes is covered, war never. AXA notes most policies treat terrorism and war differently. Terrorism may be included under certain conditions, but war is broadly excluded. An act of war could void a cancellation, interruption, or medical claim, even mid-trip. Why do they do this? Because acts of war would produce enormous correlated claims across thousands of clients at once. Too big a risk? Insurance operates on spreading risk, but war concentrates it. World Nomads warns you won't be covered if war breaks out, even undeclared. So if war erupts where you stand, your policy likely goes silent. What could still be covered? That's the twist we explore next. Let's move now to the hidden protection zones where insurance does sometimes hold. Where travel insurance does protect you, despite war risk. Every time a bomb goes off, hundreds of travelers think their policy will save them. Some do, but often for the wrong reasons. Yes, some plans do cover terrorism, but only under tight rules. Many insurers treat terrorism and war differently. Under standard policies, terrorism might be covered if the event occurs at your destination within a certain window after your insurance starts. Allianz, one major insurer, allows trip cancellation for a terrorist attack happening within 30 days before your travel date, but only if you bought coverage before any incident. If violence strikes your destination before your policy begins, you're out of luck. Here's a vivid case. When conflict flared in Israel in October 2023, Blue Cross in some regions temporarily lifted its war exclusions for policies purchased earlier, so claims for cancellations were accepted, but only for buyers who were locked in coverage before the escalation. Those who waited were denied. That loophole made headlines. Still, these exceptions carry strings. The policy may demand the attack be officially certified, occur within a limited time frame, or the government travel advisory must change after your purchase, not before. If the advisory was already in effect, most insurers refuse claims. Many contracts state they won't cover terrorism if the destination was flagged high risk in the 60 days before purchase. Also, large markets use government backstops to protect insurers. In U.S. commercial insurance, the TRIA, Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, shares losses between insurers and the federal government if a certified act of terrorism occurs. But TRIA explicitly excludes acts of war. Thus, even in America, you'll see insurers insure terrorism but exclude war. So, when a bombing strikes near your hotel, you might get coverage if your policy includes terrorism. But if a nation invades your city, your insurance almost certainly goes silent. Next, we'll explore a rarer option, war risk insurance used only by airlines and shipping lines, and why it almost never reaches your travel policy. What is war risk insurance? And why is it so rare for ordinary travelers? War risk insurance exists, but you almost never see it in your travel plan because its world is not holiday trips. It's planes, ships, and conflict zones. In insurance jargon, war risk covers damage or loss from invasions, insurrections, civil war, sabotage, all the capital W events standard policies exclude. Investopedia explains that war risk is a specialized policy addressing military and political perils outside regular claims. For ships, marine war insurance protects vessels trapped in conflict zones, blocked ports, piracy, even shelling. Airlines require war risk coverage to fly over or into high danger areas. Hull damage from missiles, confiscation, and hijacking. Still, here's what surprises many. War risk is enormously expensive. After a conflict starts, premiums skyrocket. In one US example, war risk premium per flight jumped from $210 to over $54,000, and insurers often avoid exposure by writing narrow war clauses or refusing coverage altogether. Let's unpack that. In aviation, standard policies include a war, invasion, hostilities, civil war, rebellion, exclusion per AVN 48B clauses. So war risk needs a separate write-back or endorsement. Most travelers never see that. Meanwhile, operators flying into or over conflict zones must negotiate this coverage. In shipping too, marine war insurance covers when a container ship is blocked or trapped due to conflict. That's a crucial protection for multi-million-dollar vessels, especially in contested sea routes. Why do ordinary travel policies avoid it? Because the risk is unbounded. War risk doesn't scale well across thousands of independent travelers. It's too volatile. Underwriters can't fairly predict losses when entire regions shift overnight. So war risk gets locked out of consumer policies. In short, war risk insurance protects in extreme theaters, planes, ships, infrastructure, not your backpacker trip. But take note, special high-risk insurers do sometimes sell war zone travel cover for extreme regions like Afghanistan or Iraq. A detail many never see. War risk policies are split into two parts: liability, for people and third parties, and hull, for the craft itself. And that split means your coverage might protect an aircraft, but not what happens to you inside. Next, let's dig into how government warnings, advisory levels, and hidden clauses in your policy can kill your claim before you ever leave the airport. Travel alerts, exclusions, and fine print you must see. Your travel policy is a maze of small sentences. One phrase can void your claims. Many travelers never parse it until it's too late. Take government warnings. If a do not travel advisory exists before you buy a policy, many insurers see that as a known risk and exclude war or unrest coverage. AXA notes war coverage is much more limited when the danger is already present. In Australia, Wendy's family lost their claim, even though they insured before conflict erupted, because the policy's fine print voided anything tied to war. Timing matters, often more than you suspect. Then look at exclusion clauses. TD Bank's travel plans openly list war or civil unrest as exclusions. It's not hidden, but most customers skip that page. Many policies also refuse cover if your destination had a travel advisory when you booked. Inertia Network highlights that traveling to a country already flagged often voids coverage. Here's one real anecdote. A traveler in Israel saw their policy denied because they purchased it after a public advisory was issued. His flights were canceled by conflict, but the insurer said exclusion trumped reality. You'll also see terms like pre-existing condition exclusion, sports and high-risk activities, illegal act, and war or civil unrest lumped together. That means even casual unrest or protest might be that illegal act. TD's exclusions page sifts through all of them in one list. Now here's a twist. Sometimes insurers will cover things like terrorism while denying war coverage. They draw a narrow line, so your medical evacuation could still function, even if trip cancellation is blocked. But that depends on policy language. AXA outlines scenarios like this under travel delay or disruption due to terrorism. Always check limitations and exclusions before you ever leave home. Verify whether riders like emergency evacuation, political unrest, or civil unrest are included. If they're missing or removed when you thought they were included, you could be thousands out. Almost everyone thinks their travel insurance covers everything. It doesn't, and war or unrest exclusions mean big surprises for people caught off guard. Next, we'll map out a smart buyer's playbook: how to layer protection, use optional riders, and shield yourself even when war risk looms. Let's go there. Smart Buyer's Guide: how to get protection even when war risk is real. You want peace of mind, not blind risk. Here's how some travelers force coverage into a world that usually refuses it. First, add CFAR, cancel for any reason coverage. It's not cheap, but it gives you flexibility. Policies with CFAR let you cancel for reasons outside standard coverage, even fear of conflict, but you must buy it soon after your first booking. Many plans refund 50% to 75% of your prepaid non-refundable costs. Progressive's version is one example. But CFAR has strict rules. It often requires you to insure 100% of your non-refundable costs and cancel at least 48 to 72 hours before departure. Some insurers allow CFAR only if purchased within 10 to 21 days of making your initial trip payments. Then look for supplemental war/political risk riders. These are niche add-ons that few travelers see. They're expensive and limited, but when properly drafted, they can cover losses from war, insurrection, or government-imposed evacuations. Insabai warns that standard plans exclude acts of war, but suggests upgrades may help. Document your timeline scrupulously. Save the time-stamped quote of your policy, the moment you purchased it, and the version of exclusion text at that time. If political risk rises afterward, your purchase date may become your shield. In Australia, one case showed an insurer refused a family's claim, even though they bought before the conflict, because the clause already excluded war events everywhere. Layer your protection. Use CFAR, medical, evacuation, and war risk riders together. One traveler who visited Israel in 2023 used CFAR to recoup part of his costs after conflict flared, but lost cancellation fees due to ambiguous act of war language. His insurer, AIG, denied him because they labeled the Hamas attacks war rather than terrorism. Also, when reading policies, check for insurrection, riots, or civil unrest among exclusions. Many insurers now add those terms as standard exclusions, and never assume medical coverage extends into wartime conditions. They often explicitly exclude treatment after the declaration of war. If your destination becomes volatile while traveling, partial coverage may still apply. For example, evacuation or medical care may still be honored, even if trip cancellation is denied. But success depends on the wording. You won't find perfect peace, but you can tilt odds in your favor. Smart timing, extra riders, and layered protection can turn a denied claim into a partial win. The trick is acting before war knocks on your door. Next, we'll walk through real cases, travelers who tested those limits, and see which insurance companies paid, denied, or left people stranded. The next stories hit harder than confusion. Real stories and warnings when travelers tested the limits. They booked what seemed like normal trips. Then conflict exploded. They fought insurers. They lost or almost won. Let me tell you about John and Pat Sterner, a couple from Arizona. They booked a pilgrimage to Israel in late 2023, paying approximately $5,800 for flights and tours. 3 days before departure, Hamas attacked. Tours canceled, airspace blocked. They filed a claim with AIG. And get this, AIG denied their entire claim, calling the attack an act of war, not terrorism. Their policy covered terrorism, but war? No way. John says, "We saved 10 years for this trip." Then insurance says we get nothing. Then there's traveler loses dispute after conflict thwarts Israel trip. In 2024, a man canceled his flight to Tel Aviv amid escalating conflict. He argued policy misled him, but the insurance company won. The war exclusion was explicit. Even though his trip was canceled for safety, his claim was voided. $0 repayment. The Australian Financial Complaints Authority upheld it. These aren't isolated. Insurers are clearly signaling that war claims are dead zones. The New Indian Express recently warned, some policies outright reject war claims, even undeclared war, rebellion, or military action. In Australia, a Wendy discovered exactly that. She bought insurance for her son weeks before a Middle East escalation. When his connection flight to Doha got canceled, she assumed she'd be reimbursed. The insurer said, war and unrest exclusions void such claims. Losses? Her money. These stories teach us harsh lessons. Policymakers, insurers, courts treat war exclusion with iron logic. Even sold policies purchased before conflict erupt. Even tours were canceled for safety. Claims vanish. Some rare wins exist, when insurers paid under emergency or evacuation clauses, but always because wording favored the traveler or ambiguity existed. But those are exceptions, not rules. Travel insurance isn't a magic shield. It's a contract, often tilted toward the insurer. If you enter conflict zones, you must be extraordinarily cautious, read every clause, and never assume coverage. Thanks for watching, fellow travelers. If you love uncovering the hidden truths behind how the travel world really works, hit subscribe and stay curious. We've got more real stories ahead, the ones insurance companies definitely don't want you to hear next.